They say when a man loses his father, the ground beneath him shifts. But when I got that call, I didn't feel the ground move. I felt nothing. It was a humid Thursday afternoon in Lagos, the kind of day when the sun sits heavy in the sky, pressing on your skin until you feel tired of existing. I had just left a meeting in Victoria Island when my phone rang. The screen flashed Amara. My younger sister never called unless it was serious. "Brother, Daddy is gone." Her voice cracked, thin and trembling. For a second I thought I heard wrong. "Gone where?" I asked, stepping out into the street. There was silence on the line. Then a sound I'll never forget, the kind of sob that comes from the belly. "Tunde, Daddy, he's dead." The words hit me like smoke, thick, choking, unreal. I stood frozen beside my car. Lagos noise faded. The honking, the shouting, even the hawker selling gala, everything went quiet. Just me, the sun, and that one sentence repeating in my head like an echo that refused to die. "Daddy is dead." I wanted to cry, but nothing came. I wanted to scream, but my mouth stayed dry. Maybe it was shock, or maybe deep down I had been waiting for this. When I reached the mansion in Ikoyi, the compound was chaos. Cars everywhere. Neighbors whispering by the gate. Housemaids crying into their aprons. Mama F., our old housekeeper, was sitting on the steps, rocking back and forth, muttering prayers. Amara ran to me, her eyes red and swollen. They said his car crashed on 3rd Mainland Bridge. The driver survived, but Daddy, she gasped. He burned inside. I clenched my fists so hard I could feel my nails cut into my palms. Burned? My father? The man who built half of Lagos's skyline, who stood like iron even at 70. Gone just like that? Inside the sitting room, I saw his cane leaning against the wall, the silver handle glinting in the light. I had grown up hating that cane, the way he tapped it on the floor whenever he spoke as if reminding us he was the law. Now it just stood there, useless. Ngozi was on her phone, pacing. "Have they confirmed if the police recovered his Rolex?" she asked one of the guards. I turned sharply. "His Rolex? That's what you're thinking about." She shrugged, rolling her eyes. "Relax, Tunde. I'm just asking questions." I looked at Amara, her face pale with disbelief. She whispered, "People show who they are when death comes. Watch." By evening the family lawyer arrived. His face carried that false calm lawyers always have when tragedy means paperwork. He confirmed what Amara had said. The body was badly burnt, he said. Unrecognizable. The driver was in shock. The only things recovered were the cane and a charred wristwatch. I remember standing by the window looking out at the night. Lagos traffic lights flickered in the distance. I thought about the last time I saw him, 3 days ago. He had called me to his study. "Tunde," he said, "I worry about you." I laughed. "Worry about yourself, old man?" He frowned, his eyes sharp. "You carry anger like inheritance. It will destroy you." I left his study that night without saying goodbye. Now those words came back to me, crawling under my skin like guilt. The next morning the newspapers carried it everywhere. Business mogul, Chief Edward Johnson, dies in car explosion. By noon, the vultures started circling. Journalists, business partners, relatives from nowhere, even old friends I hadn't seen in years. Everyone came, some crying, most pretending. I shook hands until my fingers hurt. "Sorry for your loss," they said. "Your father was a great man," they said. But I could see it in their eyes. Calculation. Who gets what now that the lion is gone? That evening, as I sat in the master living room, surrounded by murmurs and perfume and fake sympathy, I felt a strange tightness in my chest. It wasn't sorrow. It was resentment. All my life, my father had been the sun, and we were just planets forced to orbit him. He decided when we shone and when we vanished. Now, for the first time, I could breathe without his shadow. And yet, the air felt thin. Freedom had never felt so lonely. 3 days later, the coffin arrived. Amara insisted on an open casket viewing, but the undertaker advised against it. "The body is not suitable," he said quietly. She wept harder, clutching a framed photo of him, taken years ago during her graduation. He looked proud but distant. Always distant. During the service I stood by the grave watching them lower the casket. The priest's words echoed faintly. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Amara was on her knees, sobbing. Ngozi was whispering to a cousin about land documents. And me? I just stared, wondering if the man in that box had ever truly loved us. I felt someone beside me, Mama F. Her old hand rested on my arm. "Chief may be gone, but heaven is watching, Tunde. How you live now will tell what you truly inherited." Her words pierced deeper than the priest's sermon. I nodded but said nothing. My heart was too heavy with things I didn't understand. That night I couldn't sleep. The mansion was silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Every tick felt like a reminder that time doesn't stop for grief. I walked into my father's study. His chair still faced the window, his glasses still on the table beside a cup of dried tea. On the desk, a Bible lay open, Psalm 90, "Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom." I sat there staring at those words until dawn. And for the first time in years I whispered a prayer. Not for him, for me. But the next morning something strange happened. As I stepped out of the house I saw a car parked across the street, an old black Peugeot. A man sat inside watching the gate. When he noticed me he started the engine and drove off quickly. I caught a glimpse of his face through the window, beard, dark glasses, and something in his posture. It sent a shiver through me. He moved exactly like my father. I stood there, frozen, watching the car disappear into traffic. And a thought I couldn't shake whispered in my head. What if he isn't dead? It's strange how fast mourning turns into business when money is involved. My father's body hadn't been gone a full week, yet the mansion already felt like a marketplace. Everywhere I turned, people were whispering about shares, accounts, assets. The servants had stopped crying. The caterers had stopped cooking. Even the air smelled different, not like grief but like opportunity. Amara tried to hold everything together. She walked around with swollen eyes, answering calls, meeting the lawyer, organizing the estate papers. Meanwhile, Ngozi floated through the house in her silk robe, phone glued to her ear, speaking in fake whispers that everyone could still hear. "Of course I'll be fine, darling," she said to whoever was on the line. "Daddy left more than enough for us. I might even move to Dubai for a few months. I need air." That was her version of mourning, changing countries. I wanted to scream, but what good would it do? People like Ngozi never change. They only adapt their greed to new situations. That morning the lawyer, Mr. Ojo, arrived again. Thin, gray-haired, always smelling faintly of cigarettes. He greeted us with the solemn expression of someone who'd seen too many rich families fall apart. "We'll begin the reading of the will tomorrow," he said. Amara nodded quietly. "All of us will be there." "Of course," he replied, eyes flicking between me and Ngozi. "All of you should be." When he left, Amara turned to me. "Tunde, promise me you'll keep your temper. Please." I frowned. "My temper?" "Yes. I know you and Daddy didn't always agree, but don't let anger make you lose respect for his memory." Her words burned like acid. Respect? For a man who spent more time in boardrooms than with his children? I wanted to tell her how many nights I waited for him to show up at my school's prize-giving ceremony, how many times he called me boy, even when I was 20. But I bit my tongue. No use fighting ghosts. That night, Ngozi threw a small gathering. Music, drinks, laughter, right in the same house where our father's scent still lingered. I came downstairs to see strange faces lounging on the leather couches, glasses clinking. "Are you insane?" I barked. "Our father just died." She rolled her eyes. "Oh please. I needed company. I can't cry forever." I wanted to slap the foolishness out of her, but Amara stepped between us. "Enough, both of you," she said firmly. "This isn't what Daddy would want." I laughed bitterly. "You think you know what he'd want?" The man was a mystery. For a moment, Amara's face softened. "Maybe. But mystery or not, he's still our father. And if we lose our decency now, what do we have left?" Her words hit me in the chest. Because deep down I knew she was right, but pride kept me quiet. The next morning I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched again. I went out to the balcony, scanning the street. No black Peugeot this time. No stranger. Just the hum of Lagos life, hawkers shouting, Okadas zipping past, the city moving on while we were stuck in our private storm. Inside, Amara was kneeling in the prayer room, rosary in hand. I watched her quietly. She reminded me of our late mother, same calm strength. When she finished praying, she looked up at me and smiled weakly. "Do you ever wonder if he knew how much we loved him?" she asked. I shrugged. "I don't think he cared to know." Her smile faded. "Don't say that, Tunde. He cared, he just didn't show it well." I sighed. "Amara, some people love in ways that feel like punishment." She said nothing. Just looked at me with that sadness only good people carry, the kind that hurts more because it's pure. By evening, Mama F came into the sitting room carrying a tray of food I didn't ask for. She set it down gently and said, "Eat, my son. Death doesn't stop hunger." I nodded even though I wasn't hungry. She stood watching me for a while before speaking again. "Your father loved you, Tunde." I looked up sharply. He loved control, mama, not people. She shook her head. That man wasn't perfect. But he carried his pain quietly. You only saw the shadow, not the wound. I frowned. What wound? She didn't answer. Just whispered, time will tell, and walked away. Those words stayed with me all night. The next day came too quickly. The lawyer's office smelled like old wood and paper. Amara sat beside me, calm but pale. Ngozi, dressed like she was attending a gala, kept adjusting her sunglasses. Mr. Ojo cleared his throat and began reading. To my beloved children, Tunde, Amara, and Ngozi. I straightened, ready to finally hear what my father had left behind. He continued. Before any property or financial distribution is made, there will be an evaluation period under the supervision of my trustee, Mr. Bayo Ogunlai. During this time, no account, company, or asset shall be touched or transferred. Ngozi gasped. What? What does that mean? I leaned forward. Are you saying we get nothing until some old man evaluates us? Mr. Ojo coughed. Those were Chief's exact instructions. My blood boiled. Even in death, the man still controlled us like chess pieces. I stood abruptly. He's gone and still we have to pass his tests? What kind of father does that? Amara reached for my arm. Tunde, please. I pulled away and stormed out of the room. Outside, I paced like a caged lion. The Lagos heat beat down on me, sweat mixing with anger. I could almost hear his voice in my head. Be patient, son. Life rewards discipline. But patience never gave me anything. Only struggle did. When I got home, I poured myself a drink, whiskey the good one. Ngozi walked in soon after, face red from crying. He's punishing us, she said. I laughed coldly. Maybe we deserve it. She sat down beside me, lowering her voice. What if he's not really dead? I turned to her slowly. What did you just say? I don't know, Tunde. Amara said the body was burned beyond recognition. What if? She trailed off, eyes darting nervously. The thought hit me again, same as before. The man in the Peugeot. The way he walked. The same cane, the same stiffness. I swallowed hard. Don't say that to anyone, I muttered. You'll sound crazy. But as she left the room, I felt something shift inside me. Doubt. Real burning doubt. That night, thunder rolled over the city. Rain battered the windows. I sat in my father's study, staring at his photograph, the same one that hung behind his office desk. His eyes in that picture always seemed to follow you, as if asking a question you couldn't answer. I whispered under my breath, if you're still alive, show me. The lights flickered. And in that split second before darkness swallowed the room, I heard something, a soft knock at the window. When I turned, there was no one there. Just the curtain, swaying gently in the storm wind. But on the floor near the window lay something small and metallic. A silver cufflink engraved with the initials EJ. I picked it up with trembling hands. My father never went anywhere without that cufflink. And suddenly, grief wasn't my problem anymore. It was fear. The day of the will reading arrived like a storm I could feel in my chest. I barely slept the night before. Every shadow in the mansion seemed alive, whispering secrets. Ngozi lounged in her silk robe, scrolling on her phone. Amara had already packed a small bag, something about being ready, just in case. I didn't know what she meant. I just knew I couldn't sit quietly and watch more chaos unfold. The lawyer's office was quiet, sterile, smelling faintly of leather and old paper. We entered, all three of us, each carrying a mask of civility. But behind that mask I could see it in Ngozi, hunger, impatience, a little thrill at the thought of riches. Amara looked calm, but I knew her heart was pounding. And me? I felt nothing, except a tight knot in my chest that might have been guilt or suspicion. Mr. Ojo, the lawyer, cleared his throat. I will now read the last will and testament of Chief Edward Johnson. We leaned in, subconsciously ready for closure, or confrontation. To my beloved children, Tunde, Amara, and Ngozi, he began. Tunde. My name sounded hollow in that room. He continued. All my worldly possessions shall be distributed according to my trustee's discretion. No account, property, or company may be accessed until the evaluation period is completed. During this time, Mr. Bayo Ogunlai will oversee all matters concerning inheritance. I froze. Evaluation period? Trustee discretion? My father was dead, yet he had the audacity to control even after death. Ngozi's face twisted. What? That's not fair. We deserve it now. Amara took a deep breath. Maybe there's a reason. I scoffed. Reason? The man is dead. The only reason is that he wants to torture us one last time. The lawyer continued. It is my wish that during this period my children demonstrate character, integrity and commitment to family values. Those who act with greed or malice shall forfeit their portion. The decision shall be final. I felt the blood drain from my face. Final. Unchangeable. Ngozi shrieked. This is ridiculous. I'm supposed to sit here and do nothing while everything I worked for is frozen? I could see her fingers twitching. She wanted to grab contracts, cash, jewelry, anything. Amara's hands tightened around hers. Stop it, Ngozi. Please. I wanted to laugh. Or curse. I couldn't decide. Because even in death, my father's hand was heavier than any living man's could ever be. After the reading, Mr. Ojo left. The room emptied. Just the three of us standing in silence. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. This is insane, I muttered. Even dead, he's playing chess with our lives. Amara's voice was soft, almost a whisper. Maybe he wants us to see who we really are when the money isn't there. I turned to her sharply. Amara, don't give me riddles. This is death. There's no room for games. But even as I said it, a thought flickered across my mind. The black Peugeot, the man at the funeral, the cufflink by the window. Could it be? No. Impossible. And yet, what if he wasn't gone? That evening I sat in my father's study again. The smell of old books and polished wood felt comforting and terrifying at the same time. I poured whiskey into a glass, held it in my hand and stared at his photograph. I whispered the words I hadn't dared say aloud. What? Why would you do this to us, even dead? Amara came in quietly. She held a small stack of letters she'd found in his drawer. Look at these, Tunde, she said, placing them on the table. I picked them up, seeing our names in his handwriting, each with careful notes. My stomach turned. They weren't just letters. They were instructions, reminders, moral lessons. Even in death he was teaching, or testing. I slammed the letters down. I hate this. I hate him. Amara didn't respond. She just looked at me with those steady eyes that reminded me of our mother. You don't hate him, she said softly. You're afraid. Afraid of what you might discover about yourself. Her words hit harder than any slap. And deep down I knew she was right. The next few days were unbearable. Ngozi called friends, planning trips, investments, purchases, all while pretending to grieve. Amara visited relatives, consoling, organizing, keeping the household from collapsing. And me? I wandered like a shadow, half angry, half searching for something I couldn't name. Every night I found myself drawn back to his study. The desk, the Bible, the photographs, the ticking of the grandfather clock. And that persistent thought, what if he's still alive? It haunted me. Ate at me. Made my sleep restless. Then came the call. I was in my room, staring at the city lights glittering across the balcony when my phone rang. No caller ID. Just a series of numbers I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. Mr. Johnson, a voice said, low, calm and unmistakably familiar. I froze. Who is this? I demanded. Don't be afraid. It's about your father, the voice replied. My heart stopped. Every muscle in my body tensed. The voice sounded alive. Real. And for the first time since his funeral, the cold knot in my chest wasn't anger. It was fear. Fear that the man I thought was dead wasn't. The funeral was a spectacle, not of mourning but of display. I stood among the crowd, the humid Lagos air pressing against my skin, the smell of wet soil mixing with expensive perfume. People came from everywhere. Business associates, distant relatives, old friends who suddenly remembered my father's name. And each one wore the same expression, sorrow edged with calculation. Amara clutched my arm, whispering, try to stay calm, Tunde. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because I was watching. Not just the mourners. Not just the family. But him. A man stood at the edge of the graveyard, half hidden under the shade of an acacia tree. His posture was familiar. Slow. Measured. The slight tilt of his head, the way his hands rested on the cane, it was like looking at a ghost. I froze. My heart skipped. Amara noticed my gaze. Who? She asked. I didn't respond. My eyes never left him. The man turned slightly. Even in the dim morning light, I saw the line of his jaw, the curve of his shoulders. It was unmistakable. My father. Impossible. The priest's voice droned on, prayers mingling with the sound of the wind through the trees. People wept. Cameras clicked. But I didn't hear a word. My mind raced with a single terrifying thought. He's alive. I took a step forward. The man noticed and, just like that, he disappeared into the crowd. I pushed through the throng, but when I reached the spot, there was nothing. Amara tugged at my sleeve. Tunde, come back. You're scaring everyone. I forced myself to retreat, but my eyes stayed fixed on the edge of the crowd. Gone. Just gone. Back at the mansion, I paced like a man possessed. Ngozi, of course, was oblivious. She had already started planning her Dubai trip, giggling with some friends over champagne. Amara sat silently at the dining table, lost in her own thoughts, the fear in her eyes mirroring mine. I saw him, I whispered. Who? She asked slowly. My father. He was at the funeral. Watching us. Her eyes widened. She shook her head. You can't mean that. He's dead, Tunde. I know what I saw. I snapped. I saw him, his posture, the cane, the way he moved. Amara, it was him. He's alive. Amara remained quiet for a moment, then said softly, maybe it's a sign. We should be careful. Not everyone we trust will show their true colors. Her words chilled me. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in my father's study, staring at his photograph again, the same one that had haunted me for weeks. The wind rattled the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. And then I heard it, a soft knock at the back door. I froze. My pulse raced. Another knock. I crept to the door, hand on the handle. Outside, nothing. Just the night, wet and silent, the shadows stretching long across the courtyard. Then I noticed a silver glint on the ground. A cufflink. Engraved with EJ. My breath caught. This was the same cufflink I had found before after the funeral. My father never went anywhere without it. And suddenly, the funeral, the will, the strange man in the Peugeot, it all clicked together. He was testing us. Not just the family. Me. The following day, tension in the mansion escalated. Ngozi began accusing staff of stealing things that weren't missing, lashing out at anyone who tried to calm her. Amara was a fortress of patience, yet even she flinched at every sound, every shadow. I kept my distance, watching, listening, connecting the dots in my mind. If my father had truly faked his death, why? Was it greed? Was it pride? Or something deeper? I didn't know. But I was determined to find out. And one thing was certain. When the man I thought was dead came back into my life, nothing would ever be the same again. The mansion had never felt so empty. Not physically, the walls still held their grandeur, the chandeliers still sparkled under the Lagos sun. But the air was heavy, suffocating, filled with whispers of betrayal. The staff began resigning one by one. Some said they couldn't work in a house filled with lies. Others just wanted to get out before whatever storm was coming hit them too hard. Mama F remained quiet and steadfast, but even her shoulders seemed smaller under the weight of our father's absence. I walked through the halls, echoing footsteps reminding me that the house had lost its heartbeat. Ngozi had retreated to her room, ordering deliveries, arranging trips, laughing at something I couldn't hear. She had stopped even pretending to mourn. Amara moved from room to room, consoling workers, checking accounts, trying to prevent the mansion from collapsing into chaos. She had always been the heart of this family. And yet, even she seemed exhausted, like a candle flickering in the wind. I wandered into the library, the room smelling faintly of old leather and dust. My father's books still lined the shelves, untouched, as if they too were grieving. I ran my fingers over the spines, feeling the weight of wisdom left behind, wisdom we had all ignored while chasing our own ambitions. Bills piled up faster than I could count. Security systems faltered. The garden wilted under neglect. Luxury cars sat in the garage, tires flat, collecting dust. The house was falling apart physically and morally at the same time. And still Ngozi laughed. "You're being dramatic, Tunde," she said one afternoon as I paced the dining hall. "It's just a house. Money can fix it. You always overreact." I stopped mid-step and looked at her. The face of a girl I once knew, replaced by someone hollow, greedy, entitled. "It's not just a house, Ngozi. It's a symbol of everything Dad built. And right now, you're destroying it with your hands and your mind." She shrugged, tapping her nails on the table. "Good. Maybe it needed destroying. Maybe he did us a favor." I clenched my fist. Words failed me. Nothing could make her see the gravity of what we were losing. The trust, the legacy, the love. That night, I found myself in my father's study again. The grandfather clock ticked steadily, a lonely heartbeat in the silent house. I opened drawers, scanned letters, photographs, anything that might explain his plan. And there it was, a note tucked behind a drawer panel, barely visible. "Those who love me will stay true. The rest will show their colors." My stomach churned. He was testing us. All of us. And I could see it clearly now. Ngozi had already failed. Amara, she was holding steady though the weight was breaking her. And me? I wasn't sure where I stood. The realization burned. This wasn't just about wealth. This was about character. About truth. About heart. Days passed and the mansion sank deeper into chaos. Workers left. Staff shortages forced the remaining few to work double shifts. Meals were delayed, rooms went uncleaned, calls went unanswered. Amara bore it all silently, speaking only to calm the few remaining staff or to file complaints about missing funds. One evening, I saw Ngozi sneaking into the safe room, whispering on her phone. I followed silently. She opened the safe, counted stacks of cash, and handed it to a driver waiting outside. I felt bile rise in my throat. She was stealing. She was betraying everything, the trust, the family, the memory of our father. I wanted to confront her. But I didn't. Because if Dad was alive, and I had begun to believe he might be, he would want me to observe. To see who we really were. The mansion felt colder every day. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat properly. My anger was a constant companion. Yet, I couldn't stop thinking about the man in the Peugeot, the cufflink, the note hidden behind the drawer. Dad wasn't gone. He was watching. And in that realization, fear replaced grief. Not fear of losing him, but fear of what he might see when he finally returned. Would he look at me and see a son worthy of his legacy? Or just another shadow of failure, blinded by pride and greed? I didn't know. But one thing was certain. I had to survive this test. Even if it meant confronting the worst versions of my family, and of myself. The mansion was falling apart, but we couldn't leave it just yet. Amara and I moved carefully through the halls that evening, our footsteps echoing over marble floors that had once felt like home. Mama F followed silently, carrying a small lantern. Even in the dim light, her eyes were sharp, always watching, always judging, always knowing more than she let on. I found something, she said quietly, stopping in front of my father's study. What is it? I asked, my voice low, tense. She opened a hidden drawer I had never noticed, revealing a worn envelope. No markings, just my father's neat handwriting. For those who seek truth. Amara carefully took the envelope. She opened it, revealing a folded letter and an old, tarnished key. Those who love me will come when called. All else will fall away. The place of truth lies in Ogun State. Seek it if your heart is pure. I stared at the letter, a strange chill crawling over my skin. Ogun State. That was hours from Lagos, a quiet village where my father had spent a few childhood summers. What does this mean? Ngozi's voice echoed suddenly from the doorway. She had appeared as if drawn by fate or curiosity. Nothing for you, I snapped, gripping her arm. This is between Amara, Mama F, and me. You don't belong in this. Her eyes narrowed, but she backed away. Good. Let her stew in her ignorance. Amara turned to me, voice trembling. Tunde, this is him. He's testing us like always. Even now, even in death. I rubbed my face. Testing us? Or punishing us? She shook her head. I don't know. But he wouldn't leave a clue like this if he didn't want to see who truly cares. I glanced at the key. Old heavy iron. It had a small tag attached with a single word etched faintly, faith. Faith. Was he asking us to trust him? Or trust ourselves? The next morning, Amara and I packed lightly for Ogun State. Mama F insisted on coming, of course. Her presence was calming, grounding. Ngozi refused, claiming she had business in Dubai. I didn't bother arguing. We left Lagos behind, leaving the chaos of the mansion to descend further without us. The city seemed smaller from the window of the car, the noise fading until all that remained was the hum of the highway and the hum of my racing thoughts. What if he's alive? I finally asked Amara. She didn't answer immediately. I think, yes. But it's more than that, Tunde. This isn't just about being alive. It's about showing who you really are when everything else is stripped away. Her words hit me harder than the sun beating down on the car roof. I had hated my father for so long, for his absence, for his coldness, for his relentless control. But now, the thought that he had orchestrated this entire chaos to teach us something, scared me. By mid-afternoon, the landscape changed. The skyscrapers and traffic jams of Lagos gave way to stretches of green fields, dotted with small homes and winding dirt roads. We reached Ogun State as the sun was setting, the sky painted in streaks of orange and purple. Mama F led us to a small farmhouse, tucked behind a grove of mango trees. It was modest, almost humble, nothing like the mansions of Ikoyi. Yet something about it felt familiar, like stepping into a memory I didn't know I had. Amara whispered, "This is it, Tunde. He left this for us. He's waiting." I swallowed hard. My stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to turn back, to flee the weight of what we might find. But another part, The part that had been restless, angry, searching for truth, pushed me forward. We approached the door. The key trembled in my hand. I glanced at Amara. She nodded. I slid the key into the lock. The door creaked open, and inside, we saw a man sitting in the dim light, hunched over a small table. His hair was thinner, his shoulders stooped. But the posture, the way he rested his hands, the curve of his back, it was unmistakable. Chief Edward Johnson. Alive. I froze. Amara gasped. Mama F said nothing, but her hand gripped mine tightly. He looked up slowly. His eyes, sharp, piercing but tired, met mine. Welcome, he said. His voice was soft, worn, but unmistakable. You came. And in that moment I understood. This wasn't about inheritance. It was about heart. It was about truth. I couldn't breathe. My father, alive. Sitting in that dimly lit farmhouse, thinner, frail but unmistakably him, was alive. For a moment I wanted to run, to scream, to laugh, to cry, all at once. Instead, I stood frozen, heart hammering, eyes locked on the man who had haunted my dreams and my resentment for decades. He looked up slowly, his eyes locking onto mine. Tunde, he said, soft but steady. You came. I wanted to speak, but words failed me. Amara gasped beside me. Mama F's grip on my hand tightened, a silent anchor in the storm of emotions. He rose slowly, cane in hand, each step deliberate. I am alive, he said finally. But I have been watching. Waiting. I stepped forward, my voice shaking. What? Why would you do this? Pretend to die? Torture us like this? He lowered his head, the weight of years pressing onto his shoulders. I wanted to see, he said, voice trembling slightly. I wanted to see who loved me, not for my name, not for my money, but for me. I felt anger surge first. And you call this love? Leaving us to rot in guilt and fear. His eyes softened. I left you to see truth. To see who would stand, who would fall. And now, he paused. Now I see. Amara stepped forward, tears streaming. Daddy. I never stopped loving you. I prayed for you every day. He reached out, taking her hands gently. I know, my child. And that is why you are here, why you are still whole. I couldn't move. My mind raced through the years, the dinners missed, the harsh words, the silent disapproval, the nights I longed for his approval. Daddy. I hated you, I admitted, voice breaking. I hated you for leaving me, for being cold, for... He shook his head. Hate is a heavy burden, Tunde. And yet you carried it with pride. But you are here now, and that is enough for me. Mama F finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. You taught him well, sir. More than you know. I felt my knees weaken. Rage, guilt, relief, all mixed together into a storm that left me raw, trembling. He gestured toward a small table. On it lay letters, ledgers, photographs, remnants of his life and lessons. You see, Tunde, he said, voice gaining strength, life is not measured by money or power, but by the hearts we touch. I needed you to see the faces of your siblings. To see who stands when the world falls apart. I looked at Ngozi sitting quietly in a corner, face pale, eyes wide with guilt. He nodded slowly. Even the way they fail tells me who they are. I swallowed hard, voice catching. And me? Where do I stand? He smiled faintly, eyes glistening. You are my son. You have anger, yes, pride, yes, but also courage. You came here when few would. That matters. The room went silent, save for the quiet ticking of the old wall clock. Then he whispered, almost to himself, I have waited a long time for this moment. A son who sees me, truly sees me. And in that moment I understood, the game was not about wealth. It was never about wealth. It was about truth, love, and redemption. The rest of the night passed in quiet conversation. I asked questions and he answered with honesty I had never known him capable of. Stories from his youth, lessons from business, reflections on mistakes, even regrets. Amara laughed softly at memories we had never known, tears flowing freely. And I listened. I cried. I confessed. I finally let the walls I had built around my heart crumble. When the first light of dawn crept through the window, I looked at him and whispered, Welcome back, Daddy. I finally understand. He reached out, placing a hand on my shoulder. And I finally see you, Tunde. Truly see you. For the first time in my life I felt relief, peace, love. The kind that isn't measured by grandeur or gold, but by heart and truth. The farmhouse in Ogun State was quiet that morning, the kind of silence that presses on your chest. I woke before dawn, still shaken from the night's reunion with my father. Amara was already awake, kneeling by the small prayer altar in the corner, whispering under her breath. Mama F sat nearby, sewing something quietly, a gesture of normalcy amidst chaos. I couldn't sleep again. My mind raced through the events of the last 24 hours, the shock of seeing my father alive, the weight of his words, and the knowledge that our lives had just become a test I didn't fully understand. Then as the sun rose, my phone buzzed. Ngozi, you lied. This is insane. Father is dead. Come back to Lagos. I laughed bitterly. She had no idea. She couldn't. By midday, my father decided it was time for the first real trial. Today you will see how much your siblings love family, he said, his voice firm. I want you to stay here. Do not interfere. Watch. Amara and I exchanged a glance. I felt a rush of anger. He was putting us in the same position he had orchestrated all these years. Observing, judging, waiting. A car arrived. Polished, black, precise. Out stepped Ngozi with her usual confidence, carrying a suitcase packed to the brim. I'm here for business, she announced, scanning the yard. And I intend to get what's mine. My father's eyes didn't flinch. Let's see, he said softly. What followed was chaos disguised as civility. Ngozi immediately began demanding keys to the accounts, contracts, and even small cash holdings. She questioned the remaining staff aggressively, accusing them of hiding money or property. Amara stayed calm, helping the workers, ensuring no one was intimidated. And me? I stood back, watching, my heart sinking with every word Ngozi spoke. She even tried bribing one of the servants to hand her envelopes from the safe room. You'll regret this, I whispered under my breath. The servant hesitated, eyes darting to my father's direction. I saw the fear in his eyes, a realization that loyalty was not about money but about truth. By afternoon, my father intervened. Sit down, Ngozi, he said calmly. You are here because you believe this is your right. But rights are earned. Love, respect, integrity, those are not inherited. They are shown. Her face twisted in rage. You left me nothing. You left nothing because you have nothing of yourself, he said quietly, almost pitying her. I felt something shift inside me, not joy but sorrow. The truth was ugly but necessary. Amara, on the other hand, had been helping the staff, making sure everyone was fed, treated fairly, and respected. She was quiet, selfless, and strong. She had passed the test without even knowing it. Later that evening, I sat with my father outside, under the orange glow of the setting sun. Do you see now, Tunde? He asked, voice soft. The truth of hearts is revealed when circumstances are harsh. Not everyone who claims loyalty can withstand it. I nodded, my throat tight. Yes, I see. I understand. He smiled faintly. And you? Will you be true when tested? I swallowed. The question hit deeper than I expected. I want to be, I said quietly. But I am not sure I am strong enough. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. You are learning this now. And that is enough. That night, Ngozi left, furious, muttering about lawyers and inheritance. Amara stayed, exhausted but unwavering. I sat by the window watching her. My heart ached. She had done everything right. Loved without expectation. Gave without counting the cost. And I realized, for the first time, that love was not about grand gestures. It was about resilience, kindness, and integrity. Tomorrow, my father said, we would begin the next part of his test. But already I felt a shift. A realization that life and family were bigger than wealth. And that sometimes seeing the truth of others required seeing yourself first. The morning in Ogun State felt unusually still, like the world was holding its breath. I walked through the small yard with Amara and Mama F, the letters and keys still clutched in my hand. My father sat at the edge of the veranda, cane resting against his knees, eyes scanning the horizon. Today, he began, voice steady, you will understand why I did what I did. I took a deep breath. After weeks of chaos, fear, and doubt, the truth would finally be revealed. He called Ngozi first. She entered, confident, heels clicking against the wooden floor. I've had enough of games, she said. Give me what is mine. My father shook his head. You do not understand, Ngozi. Your actions have shown who you truly are. You do not value family, only wealth. You failed the test. Her eyes widened. What test? You are insane. He stood slowly, cane tapping against the floor. I wanted to see loyalty, love, and character. You chose selfishness and greed. Tears of anger and frustration streamed down her face. Then take your money, fine. I never wanted it anyway. I watched silently. Part of me felt satisfaction, another part pity. She had failed before the test even began, and she didn't even realize it. Amara stepped forward. Her hands were steady, her eyes calm. Father, I did my best. I cared for the staff, for the house, for everyone who needed help. He smiled, a faint glimmer of pride in his eyes. Yes, Amara. You understood what I was trying to teach. You acted without thought of reward. You passed. Her cheeks flushed. She bowed slightly, overwhelmed. I felt relief and pride swelling in my chest. Then he turned to me. Tunde, he said, eyes locking on mine. You doubted, you feared, and you resented me. But you also observed. You did not act in malice. You learned. I swallowed hard. I tried. I wanted to hate you. I hated you. But I also wanted to understand. His hand rested on my shoulder. And now you do. This was never about punishment. It was about revealing what truly matters. Not wealth, not power, but integrity, love, and resilience. He paused and gestured to the letters, the ledgers, and the photographs on the table. Every moment, every instruction, every test, it was designed to show you what family really is. Not who speaks loudest or acts fastest, but who stands when it counts. I looked at Amara, then at Ngozi. The contrast was staggering. Ngozi stormed out, furious, grasping at entitlement that had no place here. Amara remained calm, steadfast, the embodiment of everything our father had hoped we could become. I felt my chest tighten. I realized something I had never understood before. The true measure of a person isn't wealth, titles, or power. It is heart, loyalty, and courage under pressure. Finally, my father addressed all of us together. I am returning to Lagos tomorrow. The mansion, the businesses, the wealth, they are yours to steward, but only if you continue to act rightly. Ngozi has shown me her priorities. Amara has shown me hers. And Tunde, he paused, gripping my shoulder firmly. You have potential, but you must choose which man you want to be. The one who clings to anger, or the one who leads with understanding. I bowed my head. I choose understanding. A calm smile spread across his face, one that softened decades of resentment and fear. I have waited a long time to hear that, he said. And in that moment I felt something I hadn't in years, peace. The storm of deception, greed, and tension had passed. What remained was family, raw and true. And a father who had finally, in his own way, shown us the value of heart over everything else. That night, as I lay in the farmhouse, I reflected on the past weeks. All the anger, all the suspicion, all the fear, it had been a test of character. And somehow, through it all, we had survived. Amara slept soundly beside me, Mama F in the next room. I stared at the ceiling, thinking of my father. He had been cruel in his absence, yes, but he had been wise in his presence, even if that presence was hidden until now. Tomorrow we would return to Lagos. Tomorrow the real work would begin. But tonight I let myself feel gratitude, relief, and love. Because at last, I understood the man who had pretended to be dead, and why it had taken his own absence to make us see what truly mattered. The drive back to Lagos was quiet. Amara sat beside me, serene, reading through the letters our father had left behind. Mama F sat in the back, her eyes scanning the passing landscape, alert as always. The mansion loomed ahead like a sleeping giant, silent and still, holding within it the memories of the past weeks, grief, fear, chaos, and now hope. I didn't know how it would feel to walk through its doors again. Would the echoes of greed and betrayal still linger? Or could love, integrity, and truth finally reclaim the halls? As we entered, I noticed the subtle changes. The staff who remained welcomed us quietly, relieved but nervous. Amara gave instructions to restore order, and they obeyed with a mixture of respect and cautious optimism. Even the furniture seemed to settle, as if sensing that its masters had returned with purpose. Ngozi, of course, was absent. She had flown to Dubai, furious and defiant, refusing to face the consequences of her actions. And yet, somehow I didn't feel anger. Her failure had been made clear, her choices her own. It was not my burden to carry. My father stood in the main hall, cane in hand, a shadow of the commanding man he had once been. But his eyes were alive, filled with pride and relief. Tunde, he said, his voice echoing in the silent room, you returned stronger. You observed. You learned. And you acted with heart. I nodded, swallowing back emotion. Thank you, Father. For everything. He smiled faintly. I thank you too for seeing past your anger. Life will test you again. But now you understand that family is more important than wealth. More important than pride. More important than control. Amara stepped forward. Father, can we truly rebuild? He looked around the hall, eyes softening. Yes, But rebuilding is not about property or money. It's about trust, respect, and love. Never forget that. The following weeks were filled with labor, reflection, and reconciliation. Amara worked tirelessly restoring the mansion and caring for the staff. I focused on understanding the family businesses, guided by our father's letters and counsel. And slowly, the house transformed, not just physically but in spirit. We laughed again. We argued but with respect. We remembered our father's lessons, sometimes painfully but always with honesty. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the Lagos skyline, I sat on the veranda with my father. "You did well, Tunde," he said quietly. I looked at him, surprised. "I learned from you," I admitted. "Even from your mistakes. Even from this test." He chuckled softly. "A test is only useful if it teaches. I wanted to see the hearts of my children. And I have. I see now who is true, who is lost, and who is still learning." I nodded. "And me?" His eyes twinkled with faint amusement. "You are still learning. But that is life. That is growth. And you have chosen well." That night, I walked through the halls of the mansion, once again feeling the pulse of home. Memories of fear, greed, and anger lingered like shadows in the corners. But now hope and love filled the spaces between. I realized that wealth is meaningless without heart. And family is priceless, fragile, complicated, but eternal. And as I stood there, looking at Amara in the soft glow of the lamps, I knew one truth. Even a billionaire pretending to be dead could teach the greatest lesson of all. That love, honesty, and courage endure, long after money and pride have faded. For the first time in years I felt peace. And in that peace, I understood everything my father had tried to show me.